Most people planning for 2026 are watching the standard deduction, whether it gets cut roughly in half when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires. And that matters. It really does. But there's a second deduction that's scheduled to come back at the same time, and almost nobody's talking about it. The personal exemption. It disappeared in 2018 so quietly that a lot of people didn't even notice it was gone. Here's what that silence cost a typical retired couple. At $4,150 per exemption, that was the 2017 figure from the IRS, a two-person household lost over $8,300 in deductions the year TCJA took effect. Over 7 years, at even a modest effective tax rate, that's real money that just evaporated. When TCJA sunsets after 2025, the exemption is expected to come back, adjusted for inflation, landing somewhere around $4,500 per person according to current CBO projections. And for some retirees, that single line on the return is going to change a lot more than just their tax bill. Let me back up and explain what the personal exemption actually was, because if you started doing your own taxes after 2017, you may have never filed a return that included one. Before TCJA, every person on your tax return, you, your spouse, each dependent, got a flat deduction subtracted directly from your adjusted gross income. Not a credit, a deduction. In 2017, that amount was $4,050 per person according to the IRS, up from $4,000 the year before because it was indexed to inflation annually. You claimed it on top of either the standard deduction or your itemized deductions, both, at the same time. That's the part people forget. So a married couple, filing jointly in 2017, could take the standard deduction of $12,700 and also subtract two personal exemptions totaling $8,100. Combined, that's $20,800 in reductions to their taxable income before a single itemized expense entered the picture. TCJA replaced that structure by nearly doubling the standard deduction to $24,000 for married couples in 2018, but eliminating the exemptions entirely. The trade looked clean on paper. For many households, especially younger ones with mortgages and higher incomes, the math more or less balanced out. But for retirees, the swap was often worse than advertised, and I'll show you exactly why in a minute. Now, Congress didn't invent the personal exemption in 2017. This provision has roots going back over a century. The original federal income tax law of 1913 included a personal exemption, $3,000 for individuals, $4,000 for married couples, which at the time exempted the vast majority of Americans from owing any income tax at all. It survived world wars, the New Deal, Reagan-era reforms, and the 2001 and 2003 Bush tax cuts. What finally killed it, at least temporarily, was a political calculation in 2017. The Republican-controlled Congress needed the TCJA to fit inside a 10-year budget window without adding to the deficit beyond that window, which is why the individual provisions were written with a hard expiration date after 2025. The corporate tax cuts, by contrast, were made permanent. That asymmetry wasn't an accident. So what does the personal exemptions return actually mean in dollars for someone sitting where you might be sitting right now? Let's walk through a specific example. Take a couple, both 66, both collecting Social Security, one of them drawing a required minimum distribution from a traditional IRA. Their combined Social Security benefit is $38,000 a year. The RMD adds another $22,000. Total gross income, $60,000. Under current TCJA rules, after their 2025 standard deduction of $32,300, that's the married filing jointly amount including the over 65 bump per the IRS inflation adjustments. Their taxable income is roughly $27,700, and they owe somewhere around $2,900 in federal tax at the 10% and 12% bracket rates. Now move to 2026 under a full TCJA sunset. The standard deduction drops back to roughly $16,100 for married filers, based on pre-TCJA baselines adjusted for inflation by the Tax Foundation. But the personal exemption comes back. Two exemptions at approximately $4,500 each is $9,000. So their total deduction stack becomes about $25,100. Taxable income rises to roughly $34,900 compared to the post-TCJA scenario. That's more taxable income, and their tax bill climbs. But here's the thing that doesn't get said enough. For this couple, the return of the personal exemption softens the blow of losing the larger standard deduction. Without the exemptions coming back, the damage would be considerably worse. Now here's the edge case that trips people up, and it's one I want to spend a real minute on because I've seen it cause actual problems. The personal exemption has a phase out, or rather, it had one. A provision called the P's limitations cousin, sometimes called PEP-E, which stands for Personal Exemption Phase Out. Under pre-2018 law, if your adjusted gross income exceeded a certain threshold, your personal exemptions were reduced by 2% for every $2,500 of income above the threshold. In 2017, that threshold was $313,800 for married filers, according to the IRS. The exemptions didn't disappear all at once, they eroded gradually. But for higher income retirees, particularly those with large RMDs, pension income, or investment gains layered on top of Social Security, the exemption they thought they were getting could be meaningfully smaller than the headline number suggested. If the exemption returns in 2026 with the PEP mechanism intact, and there's no reason to assume it won't, since Congress would need to actively change that, then households with AGIs above what will likely be an inflation-adjusted version of that same threshold need to run the actual numbers before banking on the full $4,500 per person. My take is that most people in this situation should work with a tax professional or a flat-fee fiduciary, specifically for 2026 planning, not because the concept is complicated, but because the interaction between PEP, your RMD trajectory, and IRMAA surcharges on Medicare premiums is genuinely hard to model on a napkin. Which brings me to the piece of this that I think most people completely miss, and it matters a great deal if you're on Medicare or close to it. Your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums aren't flat. They're based on your modified adjusted gross income from 2 years prior, the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount, or IRMAA. In 2025, if your MAGI exceeds $106,000 as an individual or $212,000 as a couple, your Part B premium jumps from the standard $185 per month to at least $259 per month per person, according to CMS. The next tier starts at $133,000 individual, $266,000 joint, and the surcharges climb from there. Now, the personal exemption reduces your taxable income, but it does not directly reduce your AGI. And AGI is what Medicare uses for IRMAA. So someone hoping the exemptions return will pull them below an IRMAA threshold needs to understand that distinction clearly. The standard deduction, itemized deductions, and personal exemptions all sit below the AGI line on your return. They lower your taxable income. What lowers your AGI, the number Medicare actually sees, are above-the-line adjustments, traditional IRA contributions, HSA contributions, self-employed health insurance, things like that. I work with people 50 and over who are planning their retirement. And this above-the-line versus below-the-line distinction is probably the single most common source of confusion I run into. People think a deduction is a deduction, but where it sits on the form changes everything. So what do you actually do with all of this between now and the end of 2025? The right move is to get a projection done, not a guess, an actual projection of what your 2026 taxable income looks like under both scenarios, TCJA extended and TCJA expired. Then look at whether actions you can take before December 31st, 2025 make sense. Roth conversions are the most common lever here. If you're in the 22% bracket now and you'd stay in 22% after a full sunset, a conversion might be neutral. But if the loss of the larger standard deduction and the return of pre-TCJA rates would push you into 25% in 2026, converting at 22% this year is locking in a lower rate on that money permanently. That's not exotic tax strategy. That's just arithmetic. One more thing worth naming. There's still real uncertainty about whether Congress acts before the December 31st, 2025 deadline. Some provisions might get extended, some might not. And the combination that actually becomes law could be a hybrid nobody's fully modeled yet. I'd be skeptical of anyone who tells you with total confidence exactly what the 2026 tax code will look like. What I'd tell you is to plan for the sunset as written and treat any congressional extension as a bonus, not a plan. Don't sit still waiting for clarity that might not arrive until November or December of this year. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. This is general education, not personalized advice. Consult a fiduciary before acting. If this is useful to you, subscribing means you won't miss the rest of this series on the 2026 TCJA cliff. There are pieces of this puzzle we haven't touched yet that are just as important. And if there's a specific tax or retirement question you've been sitting with, maybe something about RMDs, Social Security timing, or how all this interacts with your state taxes, drop it in the comments. I read them, and I'll work the best ones into upcoming videos. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.